All right, let's talk about a really fascinating development coming out of California. You know, the state that so often leads the way on tech policy. They're creating a brand new profession, a new kind of job designed specifically to handle the wild world of artificial intelligence. So let's dive in. And this is a question we all need to be asking ourselves, right? AI isn't some far-off sci-fi concept anymore. It's here. It's in our hospitals, it's in our schools, it's even working with the nonprofits that help our communities. So who's the watchdog? Who's making sure these incredibly powerful tools are actually being used for good? And that really brings us to the heart of the problem. What we're seeing is this incredible tension. It's kind of like walking a tightrope. On one side, you have all the amazing potential of AI, but on the other, you've got some very, very real risks, especially when we're talking about these critical parts of our communities. This slide just lays out that tension perfectly. Look at medicine. AI promises to improve patient outcomes, but it could easily lead to biased clinical decisions. Or in schools, sure, it could enhance learning, but what about massive student data privacy breaches? And for nonprofits, it could make their outreach way more efficient, but it might also lead to unfair treatment for the very people they're supposed to be helping. So the million-dollar question is, how do you get all that promise without the peril? Well, that's exactly where this new solution comes into play. To handle this kind of complexity, California is basically creating a new kind of expert, a professional whose whole job is to stand right in the middle of that AI tightrope and keep everything balanced. So, meet the AI compliance officer. Now, this is not just your IT person, and it's not just a lawyer. It's a true hybrid. This person has to understand the law, the tech, the ethics, and the daily operations of a company. Their entire job is to be the bridge connecting all these different worlds, making sure that when AI is used, it's done fairly, transparently, and of course, legally. And listen, this is no small goal. The purpose of the course that certifies these officers is, and I'm quoting here, to develop elite AI compliance leaders. The key words there are elite and leaders. They're not just being trained to fill a role, they're being trained to be at the absolute top of this new field, mastering all the complex rules coming out of the state. So it helps to think of them less as rule enforcers, like hall monitors, and more like guardians and translators. They're guarding against the dangers of AI, and they're translating all the complex tech jargon and legal speak into practical policies that everyone in an organization can actually understand and follow. Okay, so what does a day in the life of one of these AI guardians actually look like? What's in their toolkit? Let's take a peek behind the curtain. Well, for starters, they manage the entire life cycle of an AI system. First, they have to know every single AI tool being used in their organization. That's the inventory. Then, they figure out what could go wrong. That's risk identification. Step 3 is absolutely critical. They are actively testing for bias and conducting fairness audits. And it's not a one-and-done thing. They have to keep monitoring these systems constantly and keep super detailed records for the regulators. It is a very hands-on, proactive job. And this table really shows you the kind of skills they need. It's a real mix of what you might call hard and soft skills. Yeah, they need to be masters of the regulations to get through California's laws. But they also need to be amazing at stakeholder engagement so they can train staff and build a company culture where doing the right thing with AI is just how things are done. Okay, this is where it all gets personal. Let's look at how this new role actually impacts the services you and I use, maybe even every single day. So, in a hospital, the AI compliance officer is literally a guardian of your safety. They're the one checking that new AI diagnostic tool to make sure it isn't biased against certain groups of people. And they're making sure your private health data is locked down tight. For a nonprofit, they're a champion for fairness. They make sure the algorithms being used to decide who gets aid are equitable, and that the privacy of everyone, from donors to the people receiving help, is totally respected. In your kid's school district, they are the protectors of student rights. They're the ones looking under the hood of those new AI learning apps to make sure they're actually fair and that student data isn't being sold or misused. And how about this? When you apply for a job, they're your advocate for equity. They are checking the AI software that screens resumes to make sure it isn't illegally filtering out qualified people based on some hidden discriminatory pattern. So, if we zoom out for a second, what does all of this really add up to? Well, it's about way more than just checking boxes and following rules. It's about building an entirely new culture of trust around AI. And this whole movement is guided by these key principles. It has to be holistic. You can't just look at the tech without the ethics. It has to be adaptive, because we all know the tech and the laws are changing by the minute. And it's about building a community, a whole network of these experts who can learn from each other as this field grows.
And really, this is the bottom line. It's a fundamental shift in thinking. Instead of building some AI tool and then worrying about the rules later, this is about making compliance and ethics part of the process from day one. It's about putting the public good ahead of just the bottom line.
So we end on this big question. With AI's unbelievable potential on one hand and its very real risks on the other, is this new AI guardian the key? Is this the role that will finally let us unlock innovation in a responsible way? It's a huge question, and California is betting the answer is yes. It's something we'll all need to be thinking about.